What's up, guys? Welcome to D.E.M.O with Mo. I'm your host, Monique Simmons. We'll be discussing dating, engaged, and married objectives from a young Christian's perspective. Are you guys ready? Let's dive in. Hey, what's up? Welcome to a new episode of D.E.M.O with Mo. I am your host, Monique Simmons, and today we are going to be talking about life after divorce. This topic has been asked about multiple times, and I'm like, okay, it's time to dive into it, because even though we don't always go into our relationships and our marriages wanting divorce or desiring divorce or having it on our mind is that being the outcome, if we're honest or we're realistic, sometimes that is the outcome. So I think this is the perfect time to have this conversation. And today I have two very special guests joining me to talk about this very thing. I have Mrs. Alisha Chandler joining us. Mrs. Chandler is an accomplished multiple business owner with more than 17 years of experience in property management, graphic design, and compliance consulting. Alisha is inspired daily by her husband of 14 years and their 4 children. In her free time, she likes to travel, draw, and work out. I also have joining me today, Annette McElroy. Annette is from Brookhaven, Mississippi. She moved to Jackson at the age of 19. She was married 6 years before getting a divorce. She has been divorced for 29 years. She has 1 daughter and 2 grandchildren, 7 brothers and 4 sisters. Her mom is still living and her dad is deceased. She likes to eat, shop, walk, and ride her bike. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me on tonight. I'd like to welcome you to the podcast. Welcome, Annette and Alisha.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. All right, ladies. So I always like to start the episode off with asking my guests, just so my audience can get to know you guys a little bit better. What's one fun fact that they should know about you? Alisha?
I was born on April Fool's Day.
Seriously?
Yes.
OMG.
It is definitely my personality. I can be a fool at times.
Oh my goodness. Let me ask you this. Oh my goodness. Let me ask you this. Okay, so do people try to play pranks on you all the time?
Yes.
Because it's your birthday?
Yes, they do. All the time.
That is so funny. Okay. Annette, what's one fun fact about you?
I'm very shy. At my age, I'm gradually getting out of that, and I think I've been doing real good on that. But child, very shy. But I like to laugh, and there's someone in my life who keeps me laughing.
Okay. Okay, ladies, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into the questions. Growing up, what were your thoughts about marriage? Like when you were a child or a little girl, usually they say this. I necessarily didn't have these thoughts, but as a little girl, they say little girls dream about their wedding or dream about the day they're going to get married, etc. What were your thoughts about marriage when you were growing up? Alisha?
I always wanted to be married. Growing up, I did spend a lot of time with my grandmother and my grandparents. They, of course, were married until the day that my grandfather passed. And so I kind of had that, I guess, guidebook per se, as far as, being married and being dedicated to marriage in spite of. My mom, on the other hand, she's actually been married 3 times. And so with her, what I took from her was, I didn't really believe in divorce. I kind of was against divorce, did not want to take the same route in life. Didn't want my children to experience, that I experienced. So although, a lot of people, they take certain experiences in their lives and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do that because, I just don't want to do that. But with me, on the other hand, I kind of took an adverse thought on it. Like I said, I did get married when I was young. And again, I did not believe in divorce, but I did get divorced. My first marriage was 6 years. But like I said, as a child, even though I saw, divorces and people not being together, I still wanted to get married. I always wanted to get married. Never really wanted to have like the big extravagant wedding. I just had to have this big 2-carat ring and all of that. I never had those type of standards, but I did want to get married. I always wanted to be married.
Got you. Annette, what about you?
Okay, growing up as a child, I really didn't think about marriage, wanting to be a wife, but my mom and dad, they was together until he passed away. My grandparents, my dad's mother and father, looked like they had the perfect marriage, just looking in. Yeah. But I don't believe in divorce, which I am divorced, like I said, for 29 years. I was raised, you do not divorce. You do not divorce and remarry. I was raised like that. And it looked like I'm kind of carrying it on. I was like, wow, it's been 29 years. I've been by myself, just by myself, not being married. I didn't really think about being a wife, growing up, even a teenager, but I ended up being a wife. So, yeah.
I love to hear you guys both had different perspectives about marriage growing up. And that's why I wanted to ask y'all that, because we all don't grow up and think the same way. Looking back, do you think you were ready to get married? They say hindsight is 20/20. So now when you look back, do you think you guys were actually ready to get married? Alisha?
I say yes, because although my first marriage did not turn out the way I wanted it to, I don't feel like I contributed to what resulted in the divorce. There was infidelity in our first marriage, but it wasn't on my part. And so, I felt I did everything I was supposed to have done as a wife. My first husband did, of course, admit to me years later that he was not ready to get married. And basically the only reason he did ask me to marry him was that he was afraid of losing me, because I, was raised to, don't believe in shacking. Old people back in the day said, well, you don't shack. And so we were shacking, and we had a child together at the time. And, I basically told him that, if we were not going to be more serious after our lease was up, that, I wanted to separate because I did not believe in shacking. So he kind of took that as like an ultimatum per se, but I wasn't giving him an ultimatum. I didn't say I didn't want to be with him anymore. I just didn't want to shack with him anymore. And so he asked me to marry him, but, he wasn't ready. I was ready. I had 2 kids, when me and him was together, because I did have my first child when I was 17. So I kind of had to, grow up a lot sooner than he did. But, again, I've always been, very mature for my age, and I've always kind of knew what I wanted for myself. As I got older, I always wanted kids. I always wanted to be married. And so I kind of, used that as my fuel, because I guess I was chasing what my grandparents had, and of course wanted to do different than what my mom did. So I would say I was ready. For sure he was not, but I was.
Yeah. And for my listeners, because I know some of you guys who may be listening to this, because we have listeners all over the world, but I know some of you may be listening to Alisha's response and you may have no idea what shacking means. But shacking with someone, that means you're living together before you guys are married. So just for context reasons, that's what she's saying when she says that they were shacking. So I totally understand where you're coming from on that. My husband and I actually had the same conversation before we got married. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Annette, do you think you were ready to get married?
To be honest, I was not ready to get married. I was not ready to get married, y'all. This man begged me to marry him.
Yeah.
And he made it sound so good. We can have a home, we can have things. We had a child.
Yeah.
I think my daughter was 2 years old. And after he begged me about 2 weeks, I was like, okay, let's give it a try. I should have listened to my inner gut, my gut feeling, and just don't do this, because, people will ask you to do things to benefit them. And I think that's what happened, because that's what came out. Yeah. Okay, so after we got married, I found out he was on drugs. So I guess he figured 2 incomes, he can do his drugs, and maybe with his money, and maybe I can pay everything,
Mm-hmm. And you could take care of the house.
Drugs, I did not know that. And I think, shacking, I was not raised to shack, but I think shacking is good, because that's how you learn a person. You know, you're there with them. Yeah. So if we had shacked, I would have seen this, you know, before everything that I went through, and I went through a whole lot. So I was not ready to get married.
Let me ask you this, and I'm asking you this because there's going to be a lot of people who hear this and they are contemplating themselves. Okay, so on one hand, they're saying you shouldn't live together before you get married, and the Bible teaches us that we should not be together before we get married, because I mean the temptation of having sex and all of these things that play into it. But then on the other hand, she said she didn't know all of these things, because if they would have lived together, she would have been able to know these things. How long did you guys date before you got married? Like, how long did you get a chance to really get to know him?
Date probably about, 4 years.
4 years. 4 years. And do you know how long he was on drugs before you guys got married? Like, did you ever find out any of those details?
Before, no.
No, I mean after you found out everything.
After I was married, so we had been married for probably a couple of years when everything just started hitting the fan, you know.
Got you. Okay.
A couple of years.
Okay, so next question. How old were you when you got married? Alisha?
20.
20. You were young as well. Okay. And
I had to get permission to even get married. I wasn't even legal to do it on my own.
Oh, wow.
I had to sign for it, yeah, for me to even get our marriage license.
Where were you living then, if you don't mind me asking? You were in Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the legal age back then? 21?
21. Yeah, 21.
Okay. Annette, what about you? You were how old when you guys got married?
22.
22. Okay. And I was not going to ask you guys this, but since you both have this in common, what do you think about people getting married at a young age? Do you feel like people should wait till they're a little older, or you think it just depends?
I think they should wait till they're older and a little bit more mature, you know.
I think it depends.
You think it depends as well? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think it depends on the individual, because, you know, everybody matures at different ages, and I've never been one to put maturity and wisdom and knowledge on age, because you have some people that's 40, 50, 60 years old and they still act like they're 20 or 30.
Or younger, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I've never correlated maturity and knowledge and wisdom with age, because you can be young and be well matured and have a lot of wisdom in you, and, you know, have your stuff together, and you can be, like I said, 40, 50 years old and you still out here, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul and don't know how to manage your money, or, you know, just out here playing games like you 15.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let me ask you guys this. Statistics say that 70% of divorces are initiated by women, which is pretty doggone high. How long did you contemplate divorce before finally deciding to go through with it? Alisha?
Off and on for probably a year.
Yeah.
And what about you? Off and on. It was like, you know, maybe for 2 or 3 months we were good, and then, you know, something happens. Okay, I think I want to leave, but it was about off and on for about a year before I just finally said enough was enough.
And Annette, what about you?
For me, around about 3 years. Yeah.
3 years. So a long time too.
Yes.
Yeah. And I figured that because most women, they don't just make a decision. Well, I don't want to speak for all women, but a lot of women usually don't make a decision like that. Even if they say it out of their mouth, they don't just make decisions like that overnight. Like, they contemplate that and weigh out the options and think that thing through before they really pull the trigger on it. So, okay.
And we're very forgiving, and we try to be understanding, and we try to see it good, and we try to, you know, weigh the pros and the cons and
do the right thing.
Yeah, is this the right thing? And like you said, if you were raised, you know, biblically, the Bible tells you, you know, don't get a divorce, you know, 7 times 70, you know, it's a lot of things that are instilled in you in your upbringing that causes you to say, not right now, let's try again, let's wait, let's do this, let's do that.
Yeah.
And even with me, I had other thoughts. I know one thought of being just kind of shame of my marriage,
Right,
going downhill. Yeah, just embarrassed.
What
Yeah.
people may say, how they gonna look at it, they gonna talk about you. I told you so.
Mm-hmm. And you used to go to church together. Now it's just you. And after a while, I'd be like, where's the other one? Where's your husband?
Yeah. Now you got to answer all these questions.
Right.
Okay, ladies, after your divorce, did you have any regrets? Alisha.
Absolutely not. Not a single one. The only regret I have is not leaving sooner.
All right.
Annette?
No regrets. Well, you get used to this person. And I think that was my biggest thing. I'm used to seeing him, being with him, No regrets, because I knew what could have happened, with what he was going through, the things he was doing. Yeah. Because not only he was using drugs, he was also selling them. And y'all know what I did? I even went with him one Friday night. I took my daughter to my sister's house. She spent the night. I said, I just want to go with you and see what you do. And see, all of that was helping me to make up my mind. Okay, I got to get out of here. Lord, if you help me to make it home safe, this won't happen no more.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just be there just to see where he go and the people just coming up buying drugs. I was like, oh my gosh, I could be in jail too. So
yeah. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. You wanted to know what you were in.
Right. So I saw it for myself that nobody, he agreed and he actually took me with him. And I was saying to myself, he just don't know. Because I'm trying to make sure I'm just not leaving him. I want to make sure that this is what he's doing. Yeah. And he helped me a lot by agreeing, okay, yeah, you can go.
Okay. Ladies, what questions did people ask, or what things did they say after your divorce that weren't helpful? Alisha.
That wasn't helpful?
But people can have good intentions. They want to say the right things, but maybe it just wasn't helpful at all.
The only thing I can, I guess, speak to or remember was my grandmother. She absolutely loved my first husband, and her eyesight, he couldn't do no wrong. And, a lot of times I would tell her and share with her the things that had transpired, that had happened, and she would make statements like, oh, well, maybe he lying. Or she would say, well, sometimes you just have to overlook it, or, well, that's just what happens. And I'm just like, no, grandma, I'm not doing it. And I was like, why would he lie, grandma? Why would he tell me he cheated? Why would he tell me that? That don't make sense for him to lie like that. Well, that's just how some men are. I'm just like, okay, grandma, you said so.
Yeah. And that's perfect to this question, because a lot of people, and I know your grandmother loves you, and I know she had well intentions of what she was saying, but she was raised in a generation where they did not leave their husbands. No matter what they did, they just put up with it. But they
and see, that was the thing that with their marriage, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was the thing with their marriage, because even in their marriage, there was infidelity on both parts. She even had a child by another man while she was married to my granddad, but my granddad, raised her as if she was his. And, of course, back in the day, there was rumors about, him as well. But like you said, their mindset and mentality was no matter what, he gonna still come home and take care of home, even though he out there doing what he doing, and she gonna be at home and take care of the home and the kids, even though she doing what she doing. But no matter what, they gonna be together. And even up until the day he passed, they didn't even sleep in the same bedroom. They were in the same house, but they slept in separate beds. They were in 2 different bedrooms. And, me growing up seeing that, I didn't really think nothing of it. Like I wasn't wise enough to know that, that's not what that's not how a marriage should look.
Right.
But, you know, I just took it as, oh, well, grandma don't like granddaddy snore too loud, so that's why he's sleeping on the road.
Right.
Or, you know, granddaddy was sick, and so that's why he's sleeping on the bed. Like, we didn't know no better, you know. But yeah, you're right. That's the mentality that they had, was no matter what. And I'm like, nah, grandma, this is a new day and age. I'm not putting up with it.
Right.
Yeah. Amen. And because this is a Christian podcast, and for my audience who are Christians or believers or in the church, I want you guys to really hear this, because a lot of times we justify or we use God as our excuse for doing certain things. We say God doesn't want us to have a divorce, or, you know, I was raised to not get a divorce, or I don't believe in divorces for that reason. And we use God. But then we take a look into our marriages, and there's infidelities, and there's affairs, and there's abuse, and there's neglect, and there's completely separate lives. You guys are living in separate bedrooms and living two totally separate lives. And I really want you to be honest and take a look at your marriage. Do you really believe that God is pleased with that? You think God is okay with you guys living any kind of way, treating each other any kind of way, doing anything to each other just because you can say that you guys did not get a divorce and you're still married? He is not pleased with that.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Annette, was there anything that was said to you that was not helpful?
No, there was no I told you so. No.
Okay.
Everybody was, you know, they was okay with it. His side of the family, I seemed like they kind of blamed me. Like, really? You don't know you don't know your son, you don't know your brother, you know.
But you know what? Maybe not. Because I mean, you guys were in a relationship together 4 years and you didn't even know what he was doing. I
didn't know. Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I tell people nobody knows your partner like you, because what everybody else gets is completely different from what you experience in your home.
Amen.
Nobody knows your partner like you. So they may not think anything was wrong with him.
You hit the nail on the head with that one.
I could write a book.
And I'm sure plenty of spouses could. Okay, follow up to that question, because I know there are some people who are listening who maybe have someone in their life who may be going through a divorce, or who have maybe recently got a divorce. What's the best way to support someone through this? Like, what did you need after your divorce, or while you were going through your divorce? What would have helped you during that time?
For me, I think what would have helped me was just to be an open ear, to not really have a lot of rebuttal or a lot of comments, or you should have did this, or you should have did that, or this or that, another. A lot of times, you know, we just want someone to listen, and just kind of be that shoulder to cry on. Because, you know, I know for myself personally, I kept a lot of things private. I kept a lot of things bottled up because, you know, like Annette said, the shame, the embarrassment, you know, the disappointment, people talking about you, looking at you a certain type of way. Because, you know, with my situation with the infidelity, you know, as a woman, you know, we have a tendency to blame ourselves for, you know, the things that they do. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, I never really had anyone that I could talk to that wasn't going to be judgmental, or say, well, maybe if you did this, then, you know, maybe he won't do that. Or maybe, you know, if you did this or said this or whatever, maybe he wouldn't have went and did that. But, you know, at some point I had to realize that it's not my fault as to why he chose the things that he chose to do. That's not on me. That's not my fault. You know, people do what they want to do because that's just what they want to do. And so for me, it was, if I just had someone that could listen and not pass judgment, not give their side of it, you know, not push out their opinions about it, you know, I felt like it would have helped the transition from, you know, being with him to being by myself with 3 kids.
Oh, that's good. Annette, what about you?
And with me, you know, I kept to myself, you know, because I'm I keep to myself anyway. I kept a lot of thoughts to myself, but it was one person that I communicated with. And then I was at work. I thought I could communicate, just have somebody to talk to. And this other girl who I was closer to, she helped me to it. She was like, she's telling your business. I was like, really? Mm-hmm. Now, after that, I went back into my shell, like a turtle, just went on back in my shell. And, I just kept everything to myself. But prayer is good to help. And I'm sure my mom did that for me because I really went through some things, y'all. I went through some stuff. I'm talking about where I called my mom one day trying to be so strong, and I just called her, talked to her for a minute, just called to check on her, but because I wasn't good.
Yeah.
And when she answered the phone, she said, hey, I asked her, how you doing? And she was like, how you doing? And I just broke down. I don't cry quick now. When I broke down, my mom was at my door an hour later, and it takes her 1 hour to get from Brookhaven to Jackson.
Mama got right in the car.
Got in that car. She had my sister to drive her up. She was knocking on my door. Yeah. And to have her in my life, that was a good thing. And my sister and brothers. Yeah. So.
And I'm so sorry you experienced that with the woman on your job with telling your business. I hate that because that keeps a lot of people from sharing because you don't know who you can trust. You don't know who you can share certain things with. Right. So that really keeps you from sharing stuff. So you bottle up. You don't share. Right. You don't know who you can depend on, who really wants to support you, who motives are right towards you. So I'm glad you had your family to lean on and depend on during that time. But I hate you experienced that with the young lady on your job. Okay. Did you have kids with your ex? If so, how was that transition for them? Alisha.
Yes, we share 2 children together, and it ultimately affected my son more so than my daughter. And even today, it still is something that we're dealing with. So yeah, it did affect them.
If you don't mind me asking, how old was your son at the time and how old was your daughter?
2 and 4.
Got you.
They were 2 and 4 when I left.
And how old are they now?
Well, this year they will be 16 and 18.
Annette, what about you?
Yes, my daughter, that was her dad, and she was 8 at the time, and she went through some changes, which put me through changes because, a little girl looks up to their dad. She loved her dad.
Yeah.
And looked like she blamed me, being a little 8-year-old, she seemed like, I know she did. She blamed me. I got a lot of blame, but she grew out of that after she learned, after she got older and, I would talk to her and she learned a lot. So, they took the blame off of me, but I went through some stuff. And then with her in school, her teacher would call, like, she's just not paying attention. She just sits up and just look at the ceiling. I said, oh, Lord. I had to actually take my baby to see a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I did. I really did.
And good for you on doing it because a lot of parents don't get their kids the help that they need. I wish my parents would have took my brother and I to see somebody back when they got divorced. They really should have, but so kudos to you, Mama.
Thank you.
Okay, how did you know when you were ready to start dating again? Okay, so now we've gotten a divorce. Now we're kind of popping back out in the streets, as the young people say. We're out in the streets, or we're trying to get ourselves ready to get back out here and try love again. How did you know when you were ready to start dating again? Alisha.
Well, my story is actually kind of funny. My second husband, I've been knowing him since I was 13. We actually grew up.
Wow.
We grew up in the same city, and we were quote unquote boyfriend, girlfriend back in the day.
Okay.
And he was the first boy I ever kissed. And when I moved from Columbus to Jackson in '98, we lost contact. And so I just said it was in the cards. It was God's doing. But the year I decided to leave my husband, he jumped in my inbox. He had no idea I was married. We had not talked since 1998.
Yeah.
How, why, or what reason he looked me up or tried to find me on Facebook, I have no clue. But he did. And he jumped in my inbox, basically just general conversation. How you doing? It's been a long time. Hey, stranger, you know how it go.
Yeah.
And, so he found out I was married, had kids, and so on and so forth. And originally, the conversation was very general, very polite, friendly, nothing about trying to get with me, leave your husband, none of it. And, so of course, in conversation, we started talking about my marriage and, the struggles of my marriage. And he honestly was telling me, don't leave, have y'all tried counseling? Have y'all talked to the pastor? Like, he really was trying to get me to work on my marriage. But I was fed up. I was tired. And so when I left, I actually moved out of the home that we owned together, because he would not allow me and the kids to have the home, and he leaves. So me and the kids, we left. And once I moved out, we started talking more, and it got, more serious. So I didn't really have a phase of quote unquote dating.
Gotcha. And then what about you?
With me, no big space. I didn't just jump right into it, but there was no big space. I met someone at work, and we just went from there. We ate lunch break together, just start hanging out a little bit.
Okay, so how long after your divorce did you start dating the guy from work?
Okay, so that was probably about 3 years.
Oh, that was a good little minute. 3 years?
About 3 years.
You said it wasn't a lot of space. That's some space.
It was, see, I've been divorced for 29 years now. So, and just 3 years out of the 29, that what makes it look a little, like it's not that much. But yeah, about 3 years.
Okay. So I was going to ask, have you remarried? If not, would you? I know Alisha remarried. How long have you and your now husband been married?
14 years.
14 years. So how long after your divorce before you guys got married?
Well, we've been married 12 years, and I left in 2009. My divorce was not finalized until a year later, and we got married in 2012.
Got you. Okay. And Annette,
okay,
do you want to ever remarry?
Ooh. I know God did not place me on this earth to be alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I would remarry.
Okay.
I think I would remarry now, because like I said, it was drilled into me, my family, my church family, where I grew up, no divorce, no divorce, no divorce. Once you marry, that's yours. I was like, really? It sounds right, but then it doesn't sound right. Why go through all this? Somebody who may not never change for the right, to do the right thing. I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of confusing. But anyway, I probably so. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Let's take away everything that was instilled in you, what your family think, what the church said, whatever other people have to say. Do you want to marry again?
Do I want to marry? Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, ladies. What work, if any, did you have to do within yourself after your divorce? Alisha.
Let down my walls and learn how to trust again.
Ooh,
and good. Also I had to get back in the role of being submissive because, again, I left with 3 kids. Initially, he wasn't financially helping at all. So I had to be mom and dad. I had to be superwoman. I had to, be that independent, strong woman for my boys and my daughter. And so introducing a man back into my life, introducing a role model back into my kids' life, I had to adjust me and, falling back into that submissive role of, being a wife and not being the everything. Cause I, was everything for over a year, 2 years. Because it was we dated for 2 years before we got married and started living together. And so I had to work on me when it came to that, because we bumped heads in the very beginning, because I don't need you to do this, I don't need you to do that, I can do it myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to work on a few things about myself.
That's good. And I'm sure there are a lot of women specifically, especially with the submissive thing. That's why I say women who are listening to this, who can relate to that, because after you have been on your own for so long, or been doing things by yourself, or you were in a relationship with somebody that you couldn't depend on, and now you're having to adjust with being in a relationship or marriage with someone you can depend on, I'm sure that's a big adjustment.
It is. It's definitely a big adjustment.
Annette, what about you? What work did you have to do within yourself?
I'm still working on myself because I'm independent, and I have a friend who comes around, and he came this morning and he fixed some stuff around the house. Appreciate that. But being independent, and you've been independent for 29 years.
Yeah.
It would be hard. It would be hard for, I know you're supposed to listen to your husband. I know the rules on having a husband, but it would be real hard for me, because, someone to move in, or we get our place together, married, and now you want to tell me this, that, and the other, or when I get ready to go shopping, I just get my stuff, get ready, get my purse, and I'll leave. I don't have to tell nobody I'll be back, and then where are you going? It would be so hard for me, y'all.
Okay, let's say minus a husband, because it's even if you let's say you stay single the rest of your life.
Okay.
After you divorced your first husband, was there any self-work that you had to do within Annette that had nothing to do with anybody else?
I do not remember any self-work. I don't remember anything. I knew I had to just come on with it and do what I needed to do to supply for my daughter, place to stay, a car to ride in, transportation, and make sure she had what she needed. So I was so into that, no longer a husband in my life. It was just time for me to do what I need to do. So work on myself. I can't think of anything. And I'm sure I did, but I just can't think of nothing.
Okay. Let me ask you guys this. What would you say to the person who may be listening that's dealing with shame? Because I know something like divorce brings about a lot of shame. As you guys have already spoken earlier in our conversation about the shame that comes around is because of what people may think, or what they have to say, or how they'll judge you. What would you say to the person, man or woman, because I'm sure either could deal with shame, but what would you say to them who may be dealing with shame right now?
I would probably say that your peace is more important than people's opinions, and that should be your top priority versus what people may think or say.
Yeah.
And I agree with Alisha. Being ashamed, it's just a change in your life. If it would have happened to me, if I were like now, older,
yeah,
I'd still be ashamed, but I would have that peace, just like she just said. And a peace of mind is a good thing, y'all. It's a good thing to have that peace. And I didn't have that peace at first.
And your sanity.
Right. I did not have that peace at first. I'm laying in my bed by myself. It shouldn't be like this.
And I know for me, I guess what was the turning point and I guess the final straw for me was that, I was young. I was in my 20s and I was on antidepressants because it was just we were just so unequally yoked. The marriage was we were just basically there just to say we were there. And I did not want myself to be that person for my kids. And the other factor for me was that although, 2 out of the 3 was his, we were all under the same roof, he didn't really play a part in their life. Things as simple as he would go and wash his clothes and wouldn't wash anybody else's, even the kids. Or he would go and fix himself some need and wouldn't fix nobody else anything. Or he would, not cook and use the excuse that he didn't know how to cook on an electric stove. He was used to cooking on a gas stove, so that's why he didn't cook. I mean, it was a lot. And, when I got to the point I was on antidepressants at 20 some years old, and, I was just couldn't really be a mom because I was just depressed, didn't want to be bothered. All I wanted to do was just sleep, and I had to do what I had to do for me, not so much as him. And at that point, I was just didn't care about what people thought. I didn't care about what they said. The embarrassment went out the window. I just said, this is it. I'm done. And I left.
Yeah. Amen. And to those of you who are listening, who may be curious about, well, what is shame? Well, I mean, I don't even know if I'm dealing with shame because it's a big thing we as humans deal with, period. Shame says I am my bad decision, my mistake, the decision that I made. And God does not want us to live in shame because we are not our mistakes. We are not our bad decisions. We are not the choices that we make. Life happens. We can't dictate what happens. We get in relationships or marriages and things happen, things transpire. We may have a partner, as Annette said, that may get on drugs. We may have a partner, as Alisha said, that may have an affair or there's some infidelity in a relationship. We may get in a relationship where there's abuse. We don't know. We get into things, but we have to make the decision that's best for us, best for our well-being, best for our mental health, best for our peace of mind, as the ladies have said. And that's what we have to do. But we don't have to live in shame. We can go on with our lives. We are not those decisions. Yes, we make those decisions and we have to do what's best for us, but we are not those decisions. We can go on and we can be free. And I encourage you, if you are struggling with shame, if you are struggling with guilt, or if you are on the other end of this and you are listening to this and you are dealing with these things that we're talking about, I encourage you to forgive yourself, to move on with your life. Don't live there. Don't stay there. The enemy will love no more than to keep you there, to keep you feeling shame. And God does not want that for you. Okay, ladies. So what I do when I have guests on in our private group on Facebook, for those of you who are listening, we have a private group on Facebook, Dating, Engaged, and Married Objectives. If you are dating in a relationship or you are engaged or married, come on over to Facebook and join us there. Both of these beautiful ladies are a part of that group. But whenever I have guests on the podcast, I always ask the group members if they have any questions for our guests who will be on for the episode for that week. And these are the questions that they wanted to ask you guys. The first question is, financially, how might things look different? They feel like money is always a topic for both sides after a divorce. So, Alisha, financially, how might things look different for someone after they get a divorce?
Of course, your finances are well, I'm not going to say of course, because it may be a different situation for some, but I know for me, financially, it was tough. He was the breadwinner. I did work, but I did not make as much as he did. And, it really was hard. It was tough. I had 3 kids and I was working a temp job, not a permanent job, but a temp job, making $11 an hour. I moved out of the house. I, went and got me another house. Fortunately, I was fortunate enough to where I had a vehicle that was paid for, so I didn't have that expense. But I still had, everyday expenses for myself, daycare, the kids, providing for them, and financially in the beginning, he did not help. Like, he was upset and mad, did not want to, buy Pampers, things of that nature. And, of course, I had to get the courts involved with, DHS and child support. But yeah, it was hard because I went from 2 incomes to 1 income and, had to do it all on my own. So it was tough.
Oh, wow. Annette, what about you?
And for me, the same. It was the same, a little different. I was a temp. I was making $5 an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was back in 1992. Yeah, $5 an hour. Anyway, no child support. No child support. I did that. Everything I had to do on my own. So I lived with my sister for probably about maybe 5 years. And then I got my own place because at that time I went from being a temp to full time, which helped a lot. Thank the Lord. Paying bills, paying all the bills. Probably had maybe $20 left after I paid my bills for the month.
Mm.
Yeah. So it was rough, but we made it. We had food after I bought my food and paid all my bills. $20. Okay. Gas the car up. I got $20 to spend until next pay period, but I got paid every week.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Financially, it was rough, but it could have been worse.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. So financially, things look a lot different.
A lot different. Well, to bag all the way up, if you married to someone who on drugs, using drugs, 2 incomes, yes, but it was like only 1 income because,
Right.
you may not know. So, but anyway, that person on Friday might just go and hang out, and when they come home, they're broke.
The check gone.
Gone. Yeah. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, the last question that they asked is, since your divorce, what is your stand and or what will you not accept in a new or current relationship? Okay, so Alisha, I know you've been married to your now husband 14 years, but when you guys first got together after your divorce, like, were there any things where you were like, I'm not going to accept going into this relationship?
In all honesty, no.
Okay.
I had an open mind when I first went in, and I think I was more understanding going in because, although me being human, I want to say, oh, well, he shouldn't have this, he shouldn't have that. And, that's just what it is. But, I do still now today even say that, well, he wasn't ready. We did get married young. He made bad choices and decisions. And, maybe because his dad wasn't in his life and, he didn't really have anyone to talk to him and show him and teach him and tell him about certain things. And that's why, A, B, and C happened. Back then, I wasn't trying to realize that. But now as I've gotten older, I do try to take into account, as to why certain things may transpire with people based on their upbringing. So I really had an open mind when I went into my second marriage. And, no, it has not been rainbows and butterflies and roses by any means whatsoever. No. I don't want anybody to think that, because marriage is definitely work, but you get out of it what you put in it.
That is true.
And so, like I said, of course, infidelity, I can sit here and say all day long, I ain't going for that, I'm not doing that. But, at the same time, we can't really say what we will do until we're faced with it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, to answer the question, there wasn't anything specific like, oh, if you do this, I'm gone. Like, you one and done. There wasn't anything that I could say that, was like a one and done.
Yeah. Alisha, there was so much wisdom in what you just said. To be able, because I think a lot more of us should be able to do that, where we can look back and really, because it's wisdom and compassion on what you just said about your ex. Now looking back, you realize he was not ready. Yes, he was young. He did not have his father in his life. You looked at his upbringing. You looked at all of these factors that played a role in to the man he was back then. And that impacted his life, even though that's not an excuse for some of the things he did. And whether we like it or not, those things impact our lives and how we live our lives. So that was just so wise in what you just said. And I really hope you guys who are listening grasp what she just said and really take hold of what she just said.
And I guess I don't want anyone to think that, like you said, that it excuses it, because it doesn't excuse it, but it can kind of help you understand the why behind it, but it does not make it acceptable or excuse it. Because I don't excuse what he did. Those behaviors and those actions that he did, they were not acceptable, and they should not have happened, and he should not have done that. But it did happen, and I have a better sense of why, and I don't blame myself for it, because in the beginning, in that moment, in the instance, is, oh, well, maybe, I wasn't good enough. I didn't look good enough. She looked better than me, or, I didn't have enough sex with him, or, he did. It was a number of things that played in my head, but that's just what we do as women. And I know there's some men that do it as well, because we feel like we're doing and we're giving and we're supplying and providing. And so why would you do this to me? Why would you do this? And it doesn't have, a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's something internally within them that either they need to work on, that they need to address, that they're not trying to address, that they're not trying to uncover, or they just don't want to face. And so that's the results of that. But it has nothing to do with you as their mate or their partner. But it's hard to accept that and see that in that moment, because I did not accept it, and I did not see that in that moment. I blame myself.
Amen. Annette, what about you? Were there any things, or even now, because you said one day you want to get married again, are there any things you will not accept in a new relationship, or anything you're not willing to deal with?
There's a lot of things, but that I would not accept, y'all. It's just a lot. After I went through, and I'm only telling pieces of it. It's been a lot. It was a lot going on. Oh, Jesus. But anyway, yeah, it's just a lot of things that I won't accept. The person that I'm dealing with now, he's a good person, very good person, even though he go places because he's a singer, he sings, but I'm not jealous. He talked to other females. You even kiss him on the forehead. It's just something about him that's just so different. But anybody else, probably, I might get a little jealous. And I'm not saying that I'm not jealous because I don't love him. Yeah, and we don't even discuss love. We're friends, and deep down, I love him. But anyway, just a lot of things, like a person being on drugs. That's a no for me. Especially me knowing this. The first sign of you dealing with a lot of females, no. In a certain way, and I'm feeling a certain type of way.
Got you.
Because one thing about it, if it's happening, you're going to have that feeling.
Those your only two?
That's it, yes.
Okay. All right, ladies, this is the last question before we close out. And I have really enjoyed our conversation on tonight. This is going to be a 2-part question. What advice would you offer someone listening who is contemplating divorce? They're going through things that could be worked out, but it is hard, versus someone who may be in a toxic or abusive marriage, but feel like divorce is not an option. So on one hand, you got somebody who's ready to give up on their marriage, but the stuff they're going through, it really could be worked out. They really could see a therapist or have a mediator, or really sit down and talk with their spouse and work through this, versus someone who's really in a toxic or abusive marriage, but they feel like divorce is not an option. What advice would you offer these two people? Alisha.
For the person that's in a toxic marriage, I definitely would advise them to get out. Like I stated earlier, your peace and your sanity is the most important thing that should be for you, especially if you have children. You don't want your children to see and think that it's okay. And, see, especially if you have a daughter and a son, depending on who the toxic individual is. But you don't want them to see that and think that that's okay and that it's acceptable, because like Annette pointed out earlier, God did not put us here to suffer, to not be loved, to be in pain, agony. That was not his intentions. God is of love. And, marriage should be of that as well. Like they say, husbands, love your wives as you love the church, as God loves the church. Yeah. And so definitely for that individual, if that, their spouse is not willing to go through counseling, therapy, treatment, or whatever the case may be to get better, they need to get themselves out of it, especially now in today's society, death and things like that have occurred, physical abuse because of, underlying issues that are not being addressed by the individual. Now, the person that is in a marriage that, there's some things that can be worked on and fixed. With that situation, my question to them would be, are they willing? Are both parties willing to fix and address the issue? Because at the end of the day, if they're not, then it's not going to be rectified. You can go to counseling, you can go to therapy, you can get treatment, you can do all the above. But if both parties are not willing to fix the issue and or focus on or figure out or uncover what the issue is, it's not going to work. So even in that situation, that would be my question to them. Are you all willing? Do you even want to? And if their response is yes, then hey, let's explore some resources and options so that we can try to uncover what the issue is, figure it out, and then address it. If one person is and one person is not, then it's not going to work, because you both have to have two willing parties.
Good stuff. Annette, what about you? What you think about this?
Okay, so I think a person should pray to the good Lord. He's there listening, ready to help you, and get out of it. And if you need counseling, you and your children, get that counseling. That helps a whole lot, because I'm a living witness that there would be a brighter tomorrow after divorce. I didn't think I was going to make it. It was hard. It was real hard, y'all. I had to learn how to cry. Yeah. And saying that, to learn how to cry, how children cry and rub their eyes. Mm-hmm. Mine was so puffy. I was like, I cannot go to work like this. So I had to learn how to cry, just to let the tears just flow. And I didn't think I would ever get over this, but I did. So yeah, if it's toxic, get out of it.
So what advice do you offer to the person who is not in a toxic or abusive marriage, but they're just going through some issues that could be worked through, but they're contemplating divorce?
I would say work through it, because if I could have, I would have. Gotcha. It's nothing major. Work through it.
Good stuff, ladies. I appreciate your vulnerability on tonight, because it takes some real vulnerability to really come on here and share the things that you guys have shared. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your honesty, your transparency, and the wisdom that you both have shared on tonight. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode with me on tonight. To my audience, I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation with Alisha and Annette as much as I have. And I really, really hope you guys take hold of the gems and the nuggets that they have dropped on tonight, because they've shared a lot. They really shared their hearts with you on tonight. And I really hope you guys have received that. Ladies, is there anything you would like to share or say before we close out on tonight?
No, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. No, thank you, Monique.
You're welcome, Annette. Well, ladies, I hope you guys have an amazing night. To my audience, thank you guys so much for joining us on tonight. Remember, I love you, but God loves you so much more. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you guys have enjoyed. Follow me on Facebook at D.E.M.O with Mo. If you have any questions you would like answered here live on my podcast, email them to me at demowithmo@gmail.com. That's DEMOWITHMO@gmail.com.